Okay. So today we're going to take a deep dive into something that might seem a little dry at first glance,
Yeah,
but trust me, it can be surprisingly revealing.
right.
We're talking about company annual reports, and specifically, we're cracking open Target's 2023 report to their shareholders.
It's like getting a peek behind the curtain, seeing how a major player like Target is navigating this ever-changing world of retail.
And it's especially interesting now, right? Because Target's had a bit of a roller coaster ride these past couple of years.
Absolutely. I mean, 2022 was a tough year for pretty much everyone in retail.
Yeah.
Soaring costs, consumer behavior was all over the place.
Unpredictable.
But what's fascinating about this report is it shows how Target actually managed to bounce back.
Okay,
They exceeded their own expectations in 2023 when it came to profitability.
so they weren't just treading water, they were like aiming for a comeback.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things that struck me was their emphasis on what they call retail fundamentals.
Right, back to base.
Now, I'll admit, when I first read that, I was like, okay, is that like code for boring?
Right.
But then when you actually think about it, these fundamentals, things like affordability, having stuff in stock when people want it, that's huge.
It's about being the reliable choice when everything else seems so uncertain, right?
It is.
And in 2023, I think that really resonated with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wallets were a little tighter. Everyone was looking for that sense of stability.
Yeah.
And Target really leaned into that.
Yeah, and they actually managed to achieve over $500 million in cost savings.
$500 million, that's not insignificant.
That's a lot of savings, but it seems like it wasn't just a temporary kind of belt-tightening thing.
Right.
They're talking about these efficiency efforts as part of their long-term growth plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's about streamlining, making smart investments, using technology to work smarter.
So not just harder.
Not just harder, exactly. And all of that ties directly into their plans for growth, which are, they're ambitious.
Okay, let's talk about that, because they're aiming for 4% annual revenue growth.
Right.
Which, when you consider that their 2023 revenue was a massive $107 billion.
We're talking billions more in potential growth.
Billions, that's a lot of growth. So how do they plan to make that happen?
Well, one thing that might surprise people is their focus on physical stores.
Really?
They're not just talking about maintaining their current stores. They're planning to open hundreds of new ones.
In this economy, seriously.
I know, right? And at the same time, they're revamping their existing locations.
It seems counterintuitive in the age of online shopping. Everyone wants everything delivered yesterday.
Right. But this is where Target's playing a really smart game, I think.
Okay.
They're not choosing between physical and digital. They're going all in on both.
An omni-channel approach?
Exactly. They want you to be able to shop however you want,
Okay.
online, in the app, in person, and have a good experience every time.
So they're not just investing in their physical stores.
No, they're investing in their digital presence, too.
Yeah.
Upgrades to their Target Circle program, more personalized recommendations, making the app smoother.
Mm-hmm. So they're trying to replicate that in-store, browsing experience.
Yeah, that feeling of discovery,
The Target run that people talk about, where
Yeah.
you go in for one thing and come out with a cart full of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is harder to do online, but they're working on it.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the actual stuff they're selling. They've always been a product powerhouse.
Right. They've got it all.
But what's their strategy there?
Well, it's multi-layered, right? They've got their own popular brands, those partnerships they're known for, and of course, all the big national brands.
Right, something for everyone.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
They're using technology, specifically AI, not just to manage their inventory,
Yeah.
but to enhance their product mix, even potentially gain a competitive edge.
Okay, now we're talking about the future of retail.
Right.
So how are they using AI?
So one of the biggest challenges for any retailer
Yeah.
is predicting what people are going to want and when.
Especially.
And with all the supply chain issues we've seen lately,
Right, exactly.
AI can help them analyze all sorts of data.
Okay.
Past purchases, what people are browsing online, even social media trends,
Wow.
to anticipate those needs, make sure the right products are available at the right time.
It's like they're reading our minds.
In a way, yeah, but it goes beyond that.
Okay.
They're using AI to personalize those recommendations. So whether you're shopping online or in the app,
Yeah.
you're seeing things that you actually might want, even need, without realizing it.
It's like those impulse buys just got a whole lot more calculated.
Exactly. It's all about creating a more targeted, a more tailored shopping experience,
And ultimately,
driving sales and boosting that bottom line.
It's a bold strategy.
It is.
But speaking of bold, we should probably talk about how these strategies actually translated into their financial performance in 2023.
Right, let's look at the numbers.
Let's do it. Okay, so we've talked about Target's strategy, this ambitious growth plan, this blend of physical stores and digital innovation.
Right.
And of course, their use of AI, which is kind of mind-blowing.
A little bit, yeah.
But the real question is, how did all of this translate into actual results in 2023? How'd they do financially?
Right, well, let's take a look at this 5-year financial summary they've provided.
Oh.
Because it tells a pretty interesting story. Remember how we were talking about 2022 being a rough year for retail?
Yeah, for everyone, really.
You can see it right here in the numbers. Their operating income took a serious hit,
Okay.
down to $3.8 billion from almost $9 billion the year before.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a big drop.
It is. But then look at 2023.
Okay.
They rebounded. They actually surpassed their pre-pandemic operating income.
Wow. So they more than
More than recovered, and I think it shows that their strategies were effective.
Yeah.
The cost-saving measures, the emphasis on efficiency, it really made a difference.
And it's not just the operating income, right? What about their earnings per share?
Right. So their diluted earnings per share, or EPS.
Now, for those of us who, don't analyze financial statements every day, can you explain what that actually means?
Absolutely. So diluted earnings per share, it's basically a measure of how much profit a company makes for each share of its stock.
Okay.
It's one of the key things investors look at.
So higher EPS, good for investors.
Generally, yes, a good indicator.
Okay.
And you can see here that Target's EPS, yeah, it dipped in 2022.
Right.
But then in 2023, strong rebound, $8.94.
Okay.
Which, just for context, their 2019 EPS, before the pandemic threw everything off, was 6.34.
So they're not just back to where they were, they're doing better.
Exactly, exceeding expectations.
Okay, impressive. But let's talk about those new stores for a second, because opening hundreds of new locations,
Right.
That's a big move. It's a costly move.
It is a significant investment, yeah.
So how does that factor into all of this?
Well, if we look at their historical data on retail square footage,
Okay.
it's been growing steadily over the past 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
about 0.5% annually. Pretty consistent.
So steady growth.
Steady, manageable. But with this new strategy, opening hundreds of stores, that's going to ramp things up considerably.
It's a bit of a gamble,
It is. There's always risk involved.
but if they choose the right locations,
Right. And if those new stores are successful,
they could really pay off.
it could be huge for their revenue, really cement their place in the market.
Yeah, but it's not just about opening new stores, is it?
No, it's about maximizing what they're already getting out of their existing stores as well.
And that's where that idea of retail fundamentals comes back in, right?
Exactly. Making sure the products people want are in stock,
At the right price point.
creating a good shopping experience, all of that.
They even mention a slight dip in their revenue per square foot, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it suggests there's room for improvement.
So those store revamps they're talking about,
Right. It's not just about aesthetics.
it's about making the experience better, but also more efficient.
Exactly. Driving those sales per square foot higher.
It's a balancing act for sure.
It is short-term costs versus long-term gains. That's always the challenge.
Right, but it seems like they're managing it well so far.
So far, so good.
Okay, so we've talked numbers, we've talked strategies.
Right.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on, and that's the human element.
Okay.
This report spends a surprising amount of time talking about their team, their culture, their commitment to their employees.
Yeah, they seem to really emphasize that.
They do, and I think it's an important part of this story, so let's delve into that a little bit. It's really interesting to me how much emphasis Target puts on their team in this report.
Yeah, they really do.
I mean, they have over 400,000 employees.
That's a lot of people.
It's huge, or team members, as they like to call them.
Right.
And they clearly see that workforce as a major factor in their success.
Well, yeah. I mean, in any company, but especially in retail, right? Where it's all about customer experience.
Right.
Creating a good work environment for your employees. That's essential.
It trickles down, for sure.
Absolutely.
And they talk a lot about their commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, not just among their team, but also their suppliers, the communities they work in.
It's good to see.
It is. It feels like they're trying to walk the walk.
Yeah, it's not just lip service. It's about making a real difference.
And it's not just the right thing to do. It makes good business sense, right?
Of course, when you have a more diverse workforce, you get more perspectives,
Right.
more ideas, and that leads to better decisions, a stronger connection with your customers.
It's about reflecting the world we live in, which is what Target's trying to do, be a store for everyone.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the people at the top, the ones making the big decisions, the board of directors.
Right, the leadership team.
Because when you look at the names on that roster, it's pretty impressive.
It is. They've got some heavy hitters in there.
Yeah. They do. Former CEOs from UPS, Ecolab, Cardinal Health, even Clorox.
Wow, that's quite a lineup.
It's not just retail experience either. It's like a who's who of the business world.
Yeah, they're not afraid to go outside the box.
So what do you make of that? What does that tell you about Target?
I think it shows they're willing to learn, to bring in people who have different experiences, different perspectives.
So they're not just relying on the same old playbook.
Exactly. They're looking for fresh ideas.
And it's not just about the outside perspective either. They've got a strong internal leadership team too.
Oh, absolutely. Starting with Brian Cornell at the helm.
Right, the CEO.
He's been there since 2014. He's guided them through some pretty turbulent times.
Yeah, he's seen it all.
He has, and he seems to be a very steady hand, a strategic thinker.
Yeah, remember those phrases, long-term growth, building value?
Right. Those aren't just empty words.
They're central to his message.
Exactly. He's playing the long game.
And he's surrounded himself with a strong team.
You've got Michael Fidelk, the COO and CFO. He's a numbers guy.
Making sure the finances are in order.
Right. And he played a big part in those cost-saving measures we talked about earlier.
And then you've got Christina Hennington, the chief growth officer.
She's got a big job.
She does. She's the one tasked with hitting that 4% annual revenue growth target.
No pressure, right?
No pressure at all, but she's got a lot to work with. The new stores, the digital investments, the whole AI thing.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
It will. And let's not forget Kara Sylvester, the chief guest experience officer.
Right. Because customer experience is paramount.
Absolutely.
Making sure that online, in the app, in person, it's all seamless.
That's the goal. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. This annual report's a goldmine of information.
It is, but if you had to sum it up, what's the big takeaway for you?
I think the main thing is that Target's not standing still.
They're not resting on their laurels.
No, they're evolving, innovating, taking risks.
Trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And they're doing it with a clear vision for the future.
Yeah, and a focus on their team.
Absolutely. Their employees, their customers, the communities they serve.
It's a pretty compelling story, I have to say.
It is. It shows how a company can adapt to changing times, stay competitive.
Well said. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Target's 2023 annual report. Hope you found it insightful.
As always, it's been a pleasure.
If you're interested in learning more, you can find a link to the full report in the show notes. Until next time, happy investing.